June 10th, 1963, 9:07 p.m. Small's Paradise, Harlem. 250 people were eating dinner when the room went quiet. Forks froze mid-air. Conversations died in their throats. At table 7, Marcus Smooth Henderson couldn't stop his hands from shaking. Across from him sat Bumpy Johnson, back from Alcatraz after 11 years, older, grayer, wearing a worn charcoal suit that still smelled like prison. "Eat," Bumpy said, pushing the plate of ribs forward. Marcus swallowed hard. Everyone knew what this was supposed to be, a public execution, a lesson written in blood. Then Bumpy's hand slid to his waistband. No gun. A straight razor clicked open instead. One quick motion, a thin line of red across Marcus's cheek. Not deep enough to kill, deep enough to last forever. To understand why Bumpy Johnson chose a scar instead of a coffin that night, you need to understand what Harlem had become while he was gone. What Harlem became while Bumpy was gone. By the time Bumpy Johnson walked out of Alcatraz in June of 1963, Harlem no longer looked like the neighborhood he left behind. The streets were louder, flashier, and emptier at the same time. Italian suits replaced work jackets. New Cadillacs lined 125th Street, paid for with Harlem money, but answering to Italian bosses downtown. The numbers racket still ran every morning and night, but the soul had been stripped out of it. Respect had been replaced by tribute, loyalty by contracts. For 11 years, Harlem had been managed by men who thought Bumpy was never coming back. Inside a concrete cell on the far edge of San Francisco Bay, Bumpy counted days the same way he once counted number slips, slow, precise, never forgetting. No protection, no phone calls, letters from home dried up, money meant for his wife stopped arriving. Somewhere around year 5, he understood the truth. Someone inside Harlem had sold him out, quietly and completely. That someone was Marcus Smoot Henderson. Back in the late 1940s, Marcus had been a skinny kid from 118th Street with sharp eyes and faster math. Bumpy saw potential and took him in, taught him how to run policy banks, how to keep collectors honest, how to pay the community first and ask questions later. Most important of all, Bumpy taught him the rule Harlem lived by. You can steal money, but you never steal respect. When Bumpy went down in 1952, Marcus promised to hold things together. For a while, he did. Then the envelopes stopped coming. The visits stopped. And somewhere between the 5th and 6th year of Bumpy's sentence, Marcus made his choice. He gave the Italians what they wanted: cash, houses, routes, names, and in return, they gave him permission to sit on Harlem's throne. Now, every Friday night, Marcus held court at Small's Paradise, always at table 7. French cognac, the best ribs in New York. 200 people watching him eat like a king. And 3 days after Bumpy Johnson came home, he chose that table, that night, and that crowd for a reason. Because Harlem wasn't going to be taken back in private. 11 years earlier, when Bumpy Johnson disappeared behind Alcatraz's concrete walls, Harlem didn't collapse overnight. It eroded. At first, Marcus Smooth Henderson did exactly what he promised. Money was sent, messages were delivered, the old rules stayed in place. But pressure has a way of finding cracks, and the Italians knew exactly where to push. They didn't come with guns. They came with numbers, weekly percentages, protection guarantees, quiet meetings and back rooms downtown. Marcus was offered a simple equation. Give us information and we'll let you keep power, cash, houses, collector routes. Which cops were paid and which ones weren't. Marcus gave them everything Bumpy had spent decades protecting. In return, the Italians stepped back and let a black man wear the crown, as long as he paid tribute and followed orders. By year 3 of Bumpy's sentence, Harlem's money was no longer staying in Harlem. By year 5, Bumpy's wife stopped receiving envelopes altogether. By year 7, Marcus stopped pretending he was keeping the seat warm. Inside Alcatraz, Bumpy watched men break. He didn't. He listened instead. Prison guards talked. Inmates bragged. News traveled, even across the bay. Names floated back to him like ghosts. Marcus, Genovese, cash houses burned, collectors flipped. Bumpy didn't rage. He planned. He understood something Marcus never did. Killing a traitor makes him a martyr. Letting him live makes him a warning. 3 days after his release, Bumpy didn't go home, didn't sleep in his own bed. He went straight to the old loyalists, the men who never switched sides, who survived by staying quiet. They told him everything: who ate where, who sat at which table, who liked to be seen. Marcus liked to be seen. Every Friday night, without fail, Marcus held court at Small's Paradise, table 7, same seat, same entrance time, same crowd, 200 witnesses minimum. That's when Bumpy made his decision. No ambush, no bullets, no back alley. If Harlem was going to remember who built it, the lesson had to be public, clean, undeniable. Marcus wasn't going to die that night. He was going to be exposed, and everyone in the room was going to help deliver the message. Table 7. At 9:02 p.m., Marcus Smooth Henderson walked into Small's Paradise like he owned it. Cream-colored Italian suit, burgundy tie, diamond rings catching the light. 4 well-fed bodyguards flanking him, scanning the room out of habit, not fear. This was Harlem, and Harlem answered to Marcus now, or at least that's what he believed. Then he saw Bumpy Johnson. The laughter drained from Marcus's face so fast, one of his men reached for his waistband. Bumpy sat at the neighboring table, back to the wall, eyes steady, posture calm. Same man, older, grayer, untouched by the 11 years Marcus thought had erased him. "Marcus," Bumpy said quietly, "come sit." It wasn't a request. The room felt it immediately. Chairs scraped. Glasses stopped mid-air. 250 people understood instinctively that something irreversible was about to happen. Marcus hesitated, then waved his bodyguards back. Pride wouldn't let him run. Not here, not in front of everyone he'd spent a decade convincing he was king. He sat. Bumpy signaled the waiter without breaking eye contact. "Bring us ribs, the good ones, and 2 bourbons." When the plate arrived, steam rising, sauce thick and sweet, Bumpy pushed it across the table. "Eat." Marcus swallowed. "Bumpy, listen, I can explain." "Eat." His hand shook as he picked up a rib. The jazz trio in the corner stopped playing entirely now. You could hear chewing, breathing. Someone dropped a fork, and the sound echoed like a gunshot. "I did what I had to do," Marcus said, voice cracking. "You were gone. The Italians were taking everything." "You didn't save the organization," Bumpy replied. "You sold it." Marcus leaned forward, desperate. "I'll give it back." "The money, the streets, all of it." "I'm not here to get it back from you," Bumpy said. "I'm here to take it." Bumpy's hand slid slowly to his waistband. Several people flinched, expecting a gun. Instead, a straight razor snapped open with a soft metallic click, a sound so quiet it somehow carried to every corner of the room. Marcus froze. "Please, he whispered. Bumpy stood, walked around the table, 2 steps, 3, stopped inches from Marcus's face. The blade caught the overhead light. "I'm not gonna kill you," Bumpy said, calm enough to be terrifying. "That'd be too easy." In one clean motion, he drew the razor across Marcus's left cheek. Not deep, not fatal, permanent. Marcus screamed as blood ran down onto his $400 suit, staining the fabric dark. The room stayed silent. No one moved. No one breathed. "That," Bumpy said, softly folding the razor away, "is so you remember, and so everyone else does too." He turned to the room, his voice rising just enough. "Harlem isn't for sale, and anyone who thinks it is, this is what they get." Marcus was given 24 hours to leave, alive, broken, and marked. Bumpy walked out at 9:47 p.m., leaving behind a scar, a story, and a city that finally remembered who it belonged to. Marcus Smooth Henderson left Harlem the next morning, with a bandage on his face and everything else behind him. No farewell, no protection, no second chances. By noon, the story had already outrun him. Barbershops buzzed, numbers runners whispered. Old men leaned against brick walls, shaking their heads slowly, not in shock, but in recognition. They'd seen this before. Not the razor, the message. The Italians heard it too. They understood exactly what had happened at Table 7. This wasn't a hit gone wrong. This was worse. Bumpy Johnson had returned and proven something no contract could undo. Harlem still answered to him. Killing Marcus would have ended the problem quietly. Letting him live, marked and humiliated, turned him into a walking warning. Within days, Italian collectors stopped showing up north of 125th Street. Phone calls went unanswered. Meetings were postponed indefinitely. Harlem wasn't worth the trouble anymore, not when the man protecting it didn't need guns to enforce loyalty. What Bumpy did that night rewrote the rules again. Fear fades. Men get reckless when they think death is the worst thing that can happen to them. But shame? Shame lingers. Shame follows you into every room. Shame turns mirrors into enemies. Bumpy understood his neighborhood better than any outsider ever could. Harlem didn't need another body. It needed a reminder of who built the system, who protected it, and who paid the price when they sold it out. The scar on Marcus's face wasn't punishment. It was documentation. Proof that power didn't belong to the loudest voice, the flashiest suit, or the mob backing you from downtown. Power belonged to the man who could stand in front of 250 people, choose restraint over murder, and still leave with everything he wanted. That night, Bumpy Johnson didn't just reclaim territory, he reclaimed memory. And in Harlem, memory is law. When Bumpy Johnson walked away from Small's Paradise that night, he didn't look back. He didn't need to. By dawn, Harlem already knew the truth. Not because anyone announced it, not because bullets were fired, but because a single scar carried more weight than a dozen bodies ever could. Marcus Smooth Henderson would live, but he would never belong again. Bumpy was 56 years old when he came home from prison. Older, slower, supposedly finished. But power doesn't fade when it's built on memory, loyalty, and respect. It waits. That night at Table 7, Bumpy didn't just punish a traitor. He reminded Harlem who protected it when nobody else would, and who paid the price for selling it out. If you enjoyed this story, like, subscribe, and share it with someone who understands that real power doesn't always pull the trigger. And here's the question I'll leave you with. If you were Marcus Smooth, would you rather have died that night or lived the rest of your life with that scar staring back at you every morning.